We do whatever we do to survive. Right?
Drop it!
The rhythm, the rebel.
Don't believe the hype.
Yes.
Show them that we can do this.
Here we go again.
Ted Nugent, the old rocker turned racist Republican firebrand, has been making the news a lot recently over his comments about President Obama being a mongrel. And yet he has the audacity to use language similar to Nazi rhetoric, but then compares the left and the Obama administration to a bunch of brown shirt Nazi supporters. Nugent is nothing but a sideshow circus trotted out to make silly statements to distract people from what is really wrong with America besides being tolerant of racist white supremacists like Ted Nugent. This is what Ted Nugent recently had to say on the Dennis Miller radio show.
Once you lapse it in with Nazis, even I'm sitting here. I like you, and I think the guy's doing a bad job. But I'm sitting here going, man, this is not good that we've gotten to this point where people think the cat's Adolf Hitler. I don't.
Well, I don't think he's Adolf Hitler.
Well, the jackbooted thugs, Teddy. I'm telling you, when people hear jackbooted thugs, you do what you want, Ted, but that's what you mean by that. I think you mean Nazis, unless there's some other goofball jackbooted thugs I don't know about in a fictional piece, but I think that's the reference. And they're not like that. They just stink at running an economy, and they're a little soft on world terror.
Boy, I got to tell you, Dennis, I just don't agree at all. There was an incrementalism to what happened in Germany and other places historically, where they came in slowly and they started, the power struggle between the different races and the power struggle between different elements of society, and they incrementally worked their way in. And I think that's what Obamacare is. That's what I think most of what he represents, the IRS. I really believe that what we see with the IRS can be compared accurately and historically to the early maneuvers of people like jackbooted thugs, like the Brownshirts. I really believe that, and I think that you're being too soft on them because
we just disagree, Teddy.
I think he really wants to destroy America. I think he wants to follow the Saul Alinsky Rules for Radical book, destroy our economy, have a I can't even think of the term right now, but the war between the haves and the have-nots, when the haves have because they try really hard, and the have-nots don't have because they don't try as hard.
I agree with all that, Ted. It's just we disagree on the other stuff, the imagery.
All right, so again, that was Ted Nugent, the racist rocker, Republican firebrand. And where do I start? First of all, Germany, there was not a struggle between races, okay? And when I say racist, I'm talking about ethnic groups. There was no struggle in Germany between the different ethnic groups. What there was a persecution of people who were either communists for their political views or because of their religious identification, which would be Jews practicing Judaism. And so it was no struggle in Germany against the racists, although Hitler was racist and the Nazi Party were racist. But okay, I don't think that they started with passing in a similar Affordable Health Care Act, and that's how the Nazi Party worked their way into German politics and were able to gain power incrementally. Ted Nugent is an idiot, but you want to talk about jackbooted thugs, but I never hear people like Ted Nugent or other Republican firebrands, and even those on the left, because I'm not a partisan guy. I don't play those partisan politics. But if you want to compare somebody to jackbooted thugs, well, we don't have to look no further than militarized police forces of America. All right. The way that they have been militarized, the way that they have played their role as slave enforcement code, officers. The United States locks up more people than any country on the face of the earth. And so you also every day have a citizen, and many of them, the vast majority of the stories I see, are unarmed and are gunned down by these killer cops. Recent stories that we published on Black Talk Radio Network show where you had a gang of officers beating up a man and then filing a bunch of false charges on him. He was looking at 5 years in prison, and there was dash cam videotape that the police had in their possession. And so when the guy complained and they did their little investigation, they said the cops didn't do anything wrong. You know, the police investigating other police. How does that work? That doesn't work at all. All right. News reporters sued under the Freedom of Information Act and got the video, and the video once made public, then the prosecutor drops charges against this black man, okay, who had been set up and assaulted by these jackbooted thugs that wear badges. And so when you hear Ted Nugent and others talking about, look, he wants to talk about the Obama administration is weak on terrorism. Now, I don't buy into America's so-called war on terror, but President Obama's administration has killed more suspected militants, and I emphasize the word suspected because they were never proven in a court of law to have done anything wrong, but they have killed more people than the Bush administration through the use of these drones. We've seen several countries being overthrown by the United States, or at least attempts. Okay, they overthrew the government of Libya and unleashed a whole bunch of terrorism in that country. So Ted Nugent is simply a distraction sent out there and promoted by the mainstream media as this, controversial guy making all these controversial statements, and all that is a distraction to keep the American people focused on the little things and not focused on the big things, like the fact that we live in a police state that enslaves more people than any country on the face of the planet. But, being that the majority of those people who are being enslaved and being killed by these officers are black and brown people, of course Ted Nugent doesn't care about that trampling of their constitutional freedom and right to liberty. It's all a distraction. This is Scotty Reed, Black Talk Radio News. I'm out.
We do whatever we do to survive, right?
Drop it!